Hello, everybody. Welcome to my stream again. In this live stream, I will be covering a very important topic with a very esteemed guest. Mr. Talip Aydin will be with me. He's a doctor, but he was a judge in Turkey. So we'll be talking about the human rights issue and especially European Courts of Human Rights and its position in Turkey. What is happening? I know it's a big topic, and recently the current president of Human Rights Court has visited Turkey. But how did it really turn out? What happened? What it is supposed to happen in relation to what should be happening? Um, we'll be talking about this. And I would like you to share the stream before we start. I'll invite my guest Talip Aydin. Let me see. Talip, welcome. Welcome to my stream.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi. Hi. Um, uh, would you like to introduce yourself so that my viewers know why you are the guest in this topic? I know you used to be a judge in Turkey and specifically about the human rights issues. You were president of human rights violations related issues, and now you are in a much different situation, which makes you a case of human rights, and you are following your own case as well as lobbying about many human rights abuses in Turkey. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you giving my that opportunity. I'm Talip Aydin. As you mentioned, I was the judge and the head of the Human Rights Department in Turkey. And in 2013, I came to United States officially sent by the High Council of the Judge to get my PhD. While I was doing my PhD, the coup attempt happened, and I was purged, and I'm staying in United States. And as I said, I was dismissed and trying to help the victims of the Turkish government, Erdogan regime, in that regard.
Okay, so you have actually left Turkey before even coup attempt, like 2 3 years before, but it didn't save you from being purged from your own position. So why do you think they
Yeah.
purged you to begin with your story?
Yeah, actually, that's the interesting story. It's the case, it's the reason for the Turkish government, Erdogan regime, to accuse somebody being a member of the terrorist organization. If you were sent to get your PhD in the United States or the United Kingdom, you will probably be accused of the terrorist because that's the accusations made by the Turkish government as a terrorist. It was the case for me
I
too.
see. Now, while you were saying that, a couple of notes that I remember. First of all, I think in 1982, when the coup happened by Kenan Evren, they almost sacked almost similar numbers, like 3,000 judges and prosecutors, probably to control how judges will cast their opinion. But the other thing I remembered when I asked you why they chose like you have nothing to do literally from America. What can you do? And you have been there for 2 3 years. And then I remember there is this algorithm that have been created to use. So according to that algorithm, if you know a foreign language, you're in trouble. So you might be, and if you're successful, if you have done PhD abroad, which you have committed all these crimes, so you may have fall into that criteria because apparently those are the stuff that determines in a way whether you will be on a list or not. But let's say 2016, you're in the first list, isn't it? It's nothing, like later. It's just literally this was the first thing that has been done on that night, 16th of July, and you were on the first batch of judges and prosecutors who have been purged from their position.
Actually, I wasn't. I wasn't in the first list, but let's say 3 weeks later, there was a second list. I was added for that list.
I see.
But the same logic applies. I mean, three weeks later, I was in I was added that list.
I see. So in that case, being as a judge, and especially someone who is specialized in human rights issues, I would say it should have been a dawdle for you to just make the necessary applications and get your position back. How your personal struggle for your own dismissal turned out, or what you have done, like where have you been, and what, like are you in a good position after 5 years later, almost 5 years later, whether you will be getting your position back or you will be reinstated? Is that such a chance, even remotely?
No, not close. But for my understanding, the framing the issue is very important. I mean, how to frame that situation after the 2016, what has happened in Turkey, how to frame it, very important. I mean, it's not the individual problem or violation. It's a very systematic, widespread, and for my understanding, state-organized crimes are happening in Turkey. So this is the very alarming situation because, as I said, it's not an individual problem. In every country, you may face that type of violations. I mean, individual violations. But what we have seen so far in Turkey is very alarming because the state institutions, criminal justice system, are being used against the victims. Therefore, it might be called as a persecution, for my understanding, or a crime against humanity, or maybe it might be termed as genocide. What's the common ground for these definitions is the widespread and gross violations organized by the state, especially targeting a specific group. So this dimension should be addressed very well. So my effort has been to address to show the big picture. And it's not an individual issue, it's a big problem, structural problem. And therefore, I was trying to make aware the people that situation, that intensity of the atrocities should be addressed very well.
I see. So just to put in perspective so everyone can understand, I mean, there has been thousands of people purged from their position, but as far as I know, judges cannot be just thrown out by government officials. There should have been a different procedure. Was that procedure respected at all, or you were purged by just like any other public office or civil servant?
Yeah, that's the you can't do the mass atrocity crimes against the judicial system. The first thing you have to target the judiciary. If you want to make that type of dismissals or purge, whatever you name, the first target always the judiciary. It was the case for Turkey, and the first arrested group and people were judges. And then the main message was given to judiciary. Look, first the judges who were impartial were eliminated, and the rest of the judiciary was given a message that, and you see the situation, if you don't
comply,
if you don't comply our order, you will be the next victim of our that's the situation. I mean, so the main first target was the judiciary, has been the judiciary. It's still the case. I mean, so that is very important. I mean, because the judicial criminal justice system is a tool to persecute the opponents, especially the main target is the Gulen movement followers. So everything is carried out through the judicial system. The courts, and especially special courts, were created by the Erdogan regime, and these courts were specifically tasked with fighting that group. I mean, so these courts are not designed to deliver justice, but fight the enemies, and they so far they're acting in that way. So criminal justice system, the key element. I mean, in addition to the free media, these main dimensions have been captured by the Turkish government and Erdogan regime. Then it was easy after to capturing the judiciary. We know more than 600,000 people have been arrested for the last 4 years, and let's say 200,000 conviction.
Arrested, you mean detained mostly, isn't it?
Detained, and some criminal procedure has been applied to them. So this is the huge number, and we see the scale of the human rights violations. And these it's not just arrest and detention, but also torture, and torture, every kind of gross human rights violations we are witnessing now, and ranging from mass arbitrary detention and torture, abduction, and summary executions, everything. So these violations have been very well documented by the main human rights mechanisms, like the Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and also United Nations Human Rights Committee and the other institutions underlined that violations. According to the United Nations Committee Against Torture, and Turkey is a country where the systematic torture is practicing, and there is no lack of effective investigations to the torturers, and these are these issues have been very well underlined by the United Nations Committee Against Torture, and also working group of arbitrary detention. This is also very important. In United Nations working group of arbitrary detention has decided with more than 10 cases that Turkey is abusing the criminal justice system and detaining the people against international law. So this is very important. What the committee decided, or working group underlined, that massive arrest and detention against the international law may constitute crime against humanity. And this is very important. I mean, all the activities, another dimension of the decision underlines that not only the legal activities, let's say BILOG, using the BILOG application, or affiliation, subscription of the Gülen movement related periodicals or newspaper, whatever. Every kinds of the reasons being given by the Turkish government as a arrest and detention were considered legal, not only legal, but also main human rights activities protected by the international human rights conventions. These are what I'm saying that this is the real frame, and this is the facts underlined by the leading human rights organizations, and also the basic principles. This is where, and the point is that it's not a complicated legal issue. It's very clear-cut issue. Gross human rights violations, it's not possible not to see them. If you look at normally, it's not possible not to see it and to address that structural problems. The main legal principles.
I see.
And these are the basic principles.
I have a couple of notes here. Normally, I was planning to talk about specifically ECHR, European Court of Human Rights, and the recent visit. But since we'll be talking in other programs as well, I think it is better to maybe start off at least highlighting some of the topics that we may not be able to cover during this program, but we may have to go back next time. I think to begin with, because you have been arrested on the night of the coup attempt, and because you're not a military personnel, there is nothing to do with you and coup. So that suggests that there was a profiling beforehand of who will be purged from judiciary and from police, from different sections of the bureaucracy. So because the judges and prosecutors have gone first, so that it can send a message to the rest of the judges and prosecutors, so they have to comply with the government, otherwise they'll be on the other side of the bench. So there might be some sort of a what is the right word? Profiling. That is the first illegal thing. Although you're a judge, you might have been profiled in a certain position. Then the way they have dismissed you, or the way the detentions, as you said, are a problem, and the torture during the detention or arrest, or in the prison, like overcrowded prisons, or like recently we are seeing the way the COVID is used as a weapon against the political prisoners mainly. And the third topic, I think, the arbitrary detention, because anyone can be detained to be questioned and whatever, but to use that as a tool, especially under the extreme measures in just after the coup, for a while Turkey was under the emergency law, and then maybe you didn't mention, but I remembered abductions, illegal detentions from abroad, which is another clear violation of the human rights. So all of this we'll have to talk, but I want to test something with you. As someone who has been persecuted by the government, what is the procedure? You first go to the court and say you have been dismissed illegally or unrightfully, and then that court takes it matter. If you don't like it, you go to a higher court. And once you've finished all the Turkish domestic law, because Turkey is part of the European Court of Human Rights, you have a right to approach them and present your case to European Court of Human Rights. And then they'll have to judge, and Turkey has to comply. Is this the basic procedure about that? And is it working at the moment about Turkey?
No, it's not. I mean, as I said, the problem is structural. I mean, the main problem is that Turkey's judicial system is a tool for the Erdogan regime to persecute the opponents. I mean, the court doesn't function anymore. There is no independent court, judge. It's not possible to expect an impartial, independent judiciary while the 1/3 of the whole judiciary was dismissed, and most of them were detained, and the rest of them were given a message: look, their situation and act accordingly. How you can expect that a system can function in that situation? But the problem is that, I mean, I want to elaborate it a little bit later, but as it's relevant now, that's the terrible thing. I mean, these structural problems haven't been seen by the courts. And so let me give an example. A judge, woman judge, and her name is, let's say, Merjan. Surname is Merjan. I don't remember the first name. And that woman judge, after the coup attempt, was arrested and dismissed and arrested. And then she directly applied to the European Court of the Human Rights and told that, look, I was purged, I was dismissed, and 1/3 of the judiciary, around 5,000 judges and prosecutors, were dismissed, and including 2 members of the constitutional courts and high-ranking judges were detained and dismissed, whatever. Then I am applying you and give a decision on this issue, and court rejected that application. It's not the main concern for me, the rejection of the application, but what the court told is very terrible and unbelievable. The reasoning the court gave for that situation, when according to the European Court of the Human Rights, that type of concern was a simple concern. I mean, look, think about it. And a country, 1/3 of the judiciary, when the 1/3 of the judiciary was dismissed and purged, it wasn't as doesn't constitute a concern. It's a simple concern, and that's the main issue. I mean, court could have rejected the application, but they should have told that we are really concerned. That's at least the court could have should have told. That's the problem. I mean,
so they effectively belittled the trouble itself. Not only rejected it, but also assumed that it wasn't a big problem.
Yeah, what would be a real concern, at least concern for a European Court of the Human Rights? What kind of situation would we have to make the court concerned? That it's very clear. I mean, for me, there is no need to discuss some deep law-related issue. It's very clear. The court doesn't function very well. Court is has a bias against that violations. That's my understanding, and so I have a lot of cases to make it more concrete, to underline my point. But one of them is that case. I mean,
okay.
So yeah.
But after all, this is the basic. Like, of course, in some situation you can directly go to the European Human Rights Court, but in most of the cases, what about the other ones? Were they expected to go through the domestic Turkish law first and then apply? So, but there has been 3-4 years. How is the situation about that now?
Yeah, let me clarify it. The first thing, as you are rightly mentioning, and the first you need to exhaust the domestic remedies before coming to the European Court of the Human Rights, you should apply the domestic courts first. But then for the Zihni case, this is the leading case, it was related to the purged civil servants. I mean, you know, more than 120,000 civil servants were purged and dismissed by the degree laws. So the main point was that the degree laws had specific articles showing that you can't go any court in the Turkey by that situation. I mean, it wasn't possible to bring a case before the domestic courts because the degree laws cannot enable that situation. So it was the clear-cut facts. Also, you can't go the constitutional court as that type of situation because degree laws cannot. It's not possible to bring the degree laws before the constitutional court as individual applications. I mean, two situations were very factual situation. There is no interpretation on it. But European Court of the Human Rights, when the applications were sent to the court, in the Zihni case was that, court rejected the application on the ground that the domestic remedies were available, which were against the facts, and sent them back to Turkey. What I'm saying is that it's not an interpretation. It's a real distortion of the fact.
Okay.
So it wasn't a simple case because it was related to, let's say, with including the families, 1 million people's life and death matters. That case, and also it might be a very real pilot case. It was a good let's say opportunity for the court to address the structural problems. And maybe I will be elaborating that situation. Pilot case application is very important. I mean, you don't need to be overwhelmed by the huge repetitive cases happening in the country parties to the convention. What the court is supposed to do is the very well established procedure for the court. And when you see that a country like Turkey, structural problems are happening, so you choose the pilot cases. And these cases represent the essence of the structural problems. In Turkey, it might be a bylaw case. It might be a case showing that how the anti-terrorism law are being applied to the facts. That type of situation. You need only, let's say, 5 or 6 pilot case, and when after the case is handled by the court, and these cases is the reference to be followed by the domestic courts. This is the main mechanism to deal with the countries like Turkey to eradicate the structural problems. And by doing that, the court is interfering the problem and acting proactively, and showing the violations and saying that, look, these are my interpretation, and act according to that pilot case. But so far, the court, what the court is doing, and postponing that type of cases, and giving time to the Turkish government, and choosing the cherry picking. I mean, the court is choosing the cases which will be the best for the Turkish government. Doesn't reflect the main structural problems, just the procedural, showing some procedural deficiencies, and so that's the main problem. But court doesn't stop there. The main issue is not there. Also, framing the issues according to the Erdogan regime's narrative. And that's the main problem. I mean, not only giving a chance, postponing the pilot structural problems, but converting it cases where the Erdogan regime's argument are being supported. I mean, are supported and are framed positively.
I see. So that sounds a bit strange, and we will be talking about that because it means like the European Human Rights Court is almost complicit with Erdogan's narrative, which sounds quite troubling. But today we have just done 30 minutes, so I just want to end on one question and then defer the other topics for following programs, maybe. If I understand correctly, the court can actually say you haven't done the domestic law, first exhaust the domestic law, where we know that because of so many judges have been persecuted, the domestic law may not be very positive or impartial about someone who is abused in Turkey, like Osman Kavala or Taner Kılıç or any other degree, like a government degree victim. But on the other hand, court's supposed to take some pilot cases, you say, but the Human Rights Court doesn't necessarily take them on, or even if he takes on some cases, or if he rejects or takes, it presents Turkish government's arguments in a better light, and it almost makes it look like okay. So this is what I understand. But people who are watching this program, for instance, we will also talk about those details, but I want to just end on what they can do about this, what they can do, general public can do about this, let's say, insensitivity or the failure of European Human Rights Court in this case.
Yeah, the issue should be underlined is that these inconsistencies should be very well addressed. I mean, before doing that, we should be aware of the situation and what's going on there. And first, we need to understand what's going on and framing the case and understanding the problem, then addressing it. Especially the international community. Look, what's going on there? I mean, what's the difference between why the European Court of the Human Rights and Council of Europe are acting differently than the other human rights bodies, let's say United Nations mechanisms? What's the difference? Why as I underlined that these gross human rights violations have been very well addressed by the United Nations mechanism. What makes the courts not addressing that problem? These issues should be underlined and followed because what the court is doing is not the clear-cut. Court is acting very strangely, and of course, for some cases, court has decided the violations. But the tricky part is that these violations are procedural, are not the main issues. So what I'm saying is that the court is making a show that look, I'm underlining the human rights violations. Let's say the Osman Kavala case, but How about the main structural problems? I mean, let's say 600,000 people somehow arrested or detained. There is a huge problem there. Why you don't take a single case showing that the structural problems and addressing the real points? So this is the issue. I mean,
Why do you
court
think the court
sidestepping.
doesn't do that? I mean, do you think the
I
court
mean,
being like
uh,
not impartial or?
for me, definitely, European Court of the Human Rights is violating the European Convention of the Human Rights, and especially the articles: right to fair trial, right to have a equality of the arms, let's say fair trial. These procedural rights have been violated by court itself. So the reasons for that, we may get another talk to discuss it, but mainly it may 4 or 5 points can be underlined. Monetary issues may be named. I mean, court is a part of the Council of Europe. The Council of Europe has a monetary problems, and Russia and Turkey is a contributor of the so 2 years ago, the general secretary of the council was saying that, look, and without the contribution of the Turkey and Russia, we have only 6 months to live. That's the point. I mean, one
So the
point is
budget.
budget, and also the European countries has a huge impact on the Council of Europe. And so
If it is all about money, we can just fundraise.
no, it's yeah, let's do that. But these issues should be addressed. I mean, European Court of the Human Rights not the divine entity. I mean, and look, it's not something that they are the higher position. You know, they don't do that. We see the facts over there exist and investigate what's going on there, and you should follow your rights. And so the let's say political issues have implication for that situation. And Erdogan regime very good at bargaining the international communities, and sometimes they're abducting the people, arresting people, like the pastor case, and making them a bargaining chip. They are very good at, and don't underestimate their capability. And also, let's say, maybe another issues I don't want to elaborate now exist for that situation.
Okay. Whatever that is, hopefully we'll be talking about that. And for the next program, I'll be asking maybe the viewers they can suggest their issues as well. But today we have covered roughly what has happened in Turkey and what is going on, and we identified some of the issues like profiling, illegal detentions or detentions in general, torture during the detention or arrest or in prison, arbitrary detentions, using detention as a mechanism of crushing the opposition. And also you have by then mentioned the fact that the fair trial or the right to defend yourself, the fact that a lot of solicitors and advocates have been imprisoned for defending their clients as well, and also abductions and international like illegal detentions. And why Human Rights Court of Europe is not necessarily acting upon that. Next time, hopefully, we'll be discussing some of this with some of the documents that you mentioned, like for instance, we'll pick up one of those pilot cases, why it is rejected, and what's your comments on that. And hopefully, we'll try to keep an eye on what's happening. Thank you very much for joining our program. I know we have an unlimited time to talk, but I want it to be accessible for everyone. So I will be trying to keep this around 30-40 minutes. And good luck. Stay safe in America, Mr. Talip, Dr. Talip.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Well, after sending Mr. Talip away, this is the basic human rights issues in Turkey. We have actually talked a previous judge in Turkey who have been himself persecuted and purged from his position, and trying to get justice done. Recently, European Court of Human Rights President of the ECHR has visited Turkey, and it raised some questions, the way he conducted that visit and the way he somehow make it questionable his impartiality. We'll be talking about that. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next program. Have a nice day.